Welcome, bent riders around the world. My name is Gary Solomon, and you're watching the Laidback Bike Report. So great to have you all with us today, guys. Excited about today's show. We have a wonderful guest. Let me tell you what is in store today. Our special guest today is an animator, an artist, and a bent riding advocate. You will have never met anyone quite like Nina Paley. She will be with us here in just a few minutes. We do have a viewer submission to share with you today and a couple of announcements we'll put at the end of the show. But we really look forward to this one. So I think we can meet our crew. Larry, you want to bring everybody up on stage on the crew, please? And we will say hello to who's ever here. There we go. Yeah. So first of all, down in Jackson, Mississippi, it is our pal, the media man himself, Trey Burgoyne. How you, Trey?
Howdy, folks. Glad to be here.
And handling the controls, the director of today's show in Colorado Springs, Colorado, it's Larry Seidman.
Hi, Gary. Welcome, everybody.
And down in Dallas, Texas, Mr. Wizard is ensconced in the shop there. Looks like it's our pal, Doug Davis. Hey, Doug.
Hey, Gary. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. And in the Czech Republic, sitting in a room with just the right lighting, because he worked on it really hard before we went on the air. It's our pal from recumbent.news. It is Hansa Gala. Hey, Hansa.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. Great
to have you with us. And, well, it looks like Santa's shop in the last shot there, and we've lost Santa. But Larry Varney, he'll be back. You might see him a little bit later on. We'll say hi to Larry, even though he's not there. Hi, Larry.
Hello.
Okay. There we go. Thank you. That was helpful. All right. Let's move along here and talk about the live chat that is going along with our webcast today. We run the live chat along with our YouTube and Facebook webcasts. So we hope that you will participate in the live chat. You can ask your questions, make comments. You can just chat with our panelists or amongst yourselves, our wonderful viewers from all over the world. And don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. And we always like to see that. So now, how can you support the Laidback Bike Report? If you're interested in doing that, you can like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a nice little applause button down here on YouTube. You can pop that button in there and send us $1 or $2. And you can click that little white eye right there. It will take you to the Laidback Bike Report website. And you can find out lots more about what the Laidback Bike Report has done, is going to do, and also support us on Patreon. Head to patreon.com, look up Laidback Bike Report, and you can support us there for as little as $1 a month. So we would appreciate that. You know, the Laidback Bike Report has a group of the most amazing recumbent sponsors, and let me tell you about them right now. First of all, it is TerraCycle, makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent, and Trailside Trikes. It's a fine recumbent trike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida. And Cruise Bike, designed for the cyclist who wants to ride farther, climb faster, and adventure more. All cruise bikes and frame sets ship free in the USA. And TerraTrike. Wherever your ride leads, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there. Now including KMX carts and Greenspeed. How much fun can you handle? And the Hostel Shop, America's premier recumbent dealer with the largest variety of recumbents, parts, and accessories in stock and ready to ship to your door. All right. So without further ado, let me tell you about our guest today. Now, she writes an amazing blog amongst many other things. And this is from her blog recently, October 27th. She says, "It may be transportation, exercise, or a reason to live, but bicycling is not a hobby. However, the following are hobbies: collecting bikes, tracking miles, recording your speed on various devices, scouring online classifieds for more bikes, writing about bikes, singing about bikes, converting people to recumbents, reading bike forums, researching the fascinating history of your bike or bikes, buying and selling used bikes, planning geo-riding routes, collecting bike tools, and arguing about bikes, which we may just get into here today. So, folks, I would love for you to meet right now our guest today, Nina Paley. Hello, Nina.
Hello.
It is great to have you with us. Something I've been trying to do for a while. It's very exciting to have you with us.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about recumbents to people that won't fall asleep. Maybe.
Yes, well, there's no guarantees. And we do have Larry Varney, who often takes a snooze in the middle of the show, so we better get on it. All right, Nina, I thought, as I mentioned to you a little bit earlier, we should probably start with the wonderful slides. You've sent us a bunch of images that will help to tell a little bit about what you do. So, Larry, you want to pop that first image up? And Nina, I'm going to let you just take the lead on this, and I'll pop in here whenever need be. Go ahead.
Okay, well, let's go to the first slide. So that is, I think, 2007, maybe no, that's 2005, not 2007. I think that's 2005. That is me on a Brompton, and I was pretty much exclusively a Brompton folding bicycle rider for a few decades because I lived in cities. At the time, I lived in New York City. And that is the only metric century I ever went on up to that point. That was a big deal for me to ride. I don't know, it was close to 70 miles. It was exhausting. It was a group ride. Oh yeah, and this was on Long Island. Yeah, next one. Those are the Bromptons I have now. Clearly I have a thing for Bromptons. Next one. Yeah, okay. I'm into Bromptons, or was. I was until I got into recumbents. So this is the carbon fiber trek bike that a friend of my mom's traded me for an art quilt. And it is the first proper road bike I ever had. This would have been, I think, 2014. It was light. I could pick it up with one hand. I'd never had a bike like that. And I, started riding, and it was great. When I say started riding, I've always ridden bikes, but living in central Illinois, again, this is where I moved in 2012 after New York City. By the way, I grew up in Urbana, Illinois, and that is where I live once again after living 23 years away. So I took what we'd call long rides on this bike, or which for me at the time were long rides. So for me, a long ride was 20 miles, 20 to 30 miles, big deal. Anyway, the problem with this bike, you can see these cracks, the carbon fiber cracked, thereby leaving me suspicious of carbon fiber for the rest of my life. And next, I also was developing what the doctor said was arthritis. I had this horrible pain in my thumb. So I would be on this road bike with my hands vibrating away and this developing pain and swollenness, and was just thinking, this is not sustainable. And as much as I enjoy bicycling, I cannot do something that is going to kill my hands. This was my left hand, but my right hand was on the same handlebars, and I was concerned. Next. So I happened to have a friend who had a recumbent, a Rans Rocket, and he let me try his recumbent. And this is the first time I ever rode a recumbent, this picture. You should know that it took me about 30 minutes before I reached this advanced stage where I could actually pedal the bike. I just sort of scooted along. It really was like learning to ride a bike all over again. But it was pretty clear that I was not going to be stressing my hands the same way. So I pursued it. Next.
And a short wheelbase is a tough way to get started.
Yeah, and a Rand's rocket.
Right, right.
So yeah, next slide. This was the first. This was when I went with that bike on the, to me, long at the time ride, the 20-mile round trip to the Sydney Dairy Barn on the moonlight ride that we have here, and I fell off the bike. It was dark. My headlight failed. I was trying to accelerate from a stop, or just trying to start from a stop, and I fell. So that was my skinned elbow. I tore my shirt. Obviously, I was not too badly injured, or else I wouldn't be smiling. On that same ride, I guess you can go to the next slide. Oh, well, actually,
did we get them out of order?
No, that's my order. You can go back. Well, that's fine. So I knew that I wanted to ride a recumbent, and I thought, well, recumbents maybe are just a little hard, but I have decent balance, and I know I can conquer this thing. So I ordered, without ever trying it, a short wheelbase recumbent. That's the next one, the Performer Toscana, because my friend said, like, oh, this looks like a good bike. And living in Urbana, Illinois, and not driving means that I cannot test ride recumbents. So even now, I basically have to usually buy them to try them, which is fine. I've gotten used to it, buying and selling them.
Not only a short wheelbase, Nina, but like under seat steering, right? That's nothing that you had ever even attempted at that point. Is that right?
Yeah, but I wanted under seat steering because my primary concern was my hands. So this was all for my hands.
If we can, maybe we take a second for those who don't know Nina Paley, we should probably explain to the folks a little bit about what you do. So why are your hands so important? What's the big deal? What do you do with those hands?
Because I am an animator, an artist, and I use the hands to make the art. And if I cannot use my hands, then I am lost. All is lost. I actually did lose use of my right hand, my drawing hand, when I was 25 years old. I got really severe tendonitis, and it had to be wrapped up for half a year. And that was a very dark time. So I don't want to put myself through that again.
Right. Understandable. Of course, I guess most people do use their hands. It's kind of important. But in your case, it is totally your livelihood. And for those of you who don't know, if you've seen the thumbnail for this actual video, and it is one of our new logos that Nina created for the Laidback Bike Report, an amazing thing. And I've posted about it on Facebook as well. So she does great work, and we'll talk a little bit more about your work later on. But let's go ahead back to the slideshow then. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Right.
And
okay. Well,
who's riding now? What's that?
After I ordered that Performer Toscana, I saw this grasshopper. I think it was in the Bent Rider Classifieds. And I was like, an underseat steering recumbent that folds, I must have it. And that's why I showed all those Brompton photos, because my obsession with bikes that fold has sort of persisted. So this seemed like a good idea. So actually, this one came even before the Toscana came from Taiwan. And I rode it. I rode it plenty. Next slide. But at that first ride where I fell and skinned my arm, this other rider that was on this ride was asking me about the rocket and asked if I'd ever ridden a Tour Easy. And I said, no. And he said, well, I have one. If you ever decide to ride, do you want to try one? I'll lend you mine. And, then I proceeded to fall off the rocket on the way home. So I actually did get in touch with him, and he did lend me his Tour Easy. And eventually when he left town, he sold me his Tour Easy, which I freaking loved. Even though it's overseat steering, I just loved it and still do. This one was named Butch. I've since sold it to a friend of mine, but man, I put thousands of miles on this bike and just loved it. Next. So this picture was, I think, later in 2015. And this was the bike I had access to at the time. So it's Butch in the front. You can see the grasshopper, Hoppy, in the back, and my friend's Rand's rocket in between. Next. And then at the end of 2015, I decided I deserved a quality midlife crisis vehicle. And yeah, I just really wanted a velomobile because I'd been riding that summer a lot, and winter was soon coming, and I just thought it's going to be too cold for me to ride. I should say that at this time, I've since gotten better, but I have Raynaud's disease, and being cold really was a big deal for me at the time. I'm actually.
You want to describe that for folks? It's a circulation issue. Tell folks what that means. If you have Raynaud's, why is it a problem to be out in the cold?
Yeah, well, it's actually even a problem to be inside in the cold. I just would not, like, my feet were always the coldest thing in any room. My feet and my fingers, my feet first, and it was actually painful. I mean, it still is if I get cold enough. It's just gotten better because, you know, as an aging woman, my hormonal balance has changed, and that has improved things.
Seems like a perfect point for me not to make any comment. Please continue.
You know, actually, since I'm the only, if this show were like all women, we would be talking about this. Believe me, this is especially recumbents. Like, okay, so I had a hysterectomy 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, and recumbents are so great when you are recovering from that. Actually, a male friend of mine recently had abdominal surgery, and he's trying to bike again. And he's like, whoa, this is hard. And I'm like, ride a recumbent. It's the best thing for when you're recovering from any kind of abdominal surgery, I think.
Well, I'll go as far as to say back surgery. My wife had back surgery a number of years ago. And then, you know, if you ask the orthopedic surgeon after that, when can I ride my bike again? They say, well, you know, maybe a year you can get back on a bike. And then if you tell them you ride a recumbent bike, and you know, they'll say, what are you talking about? But if you explain to them and they'll, oh yeah, I know what those are. Yeah, well, you could as soon as you're ready. So, right. It's a whole different ballgame for being able to rehab from so many types of surgery and ailments. So, and as far as I will say this about, we have no lady panelists, although I have tried from time to time, but hopefully, and I do know that we have a number of women who are in the audience. So what you speak to here is very, very important you know, have your ideas represented to them as well. So please continue.
Please continue. Okay, what slide are we on? Yes, right. So this is my midlife crisis mobile. I got it from Ride South. That's the previous picture, I think, is me proudly and happily. There it is. Yes, I was so happy to get this thing. Yeah, it's a Sinner Mango Sport. Apparently its name is Frosty. I kept that name, it being white. Okay, next. It's just, I rode it all over the place. And when I got this, my riding, I would say my distances doubled with this thing. You know, before this, it was like 20-mile ride, 30-mile ride would be a long ride. And this picture is on the way home from Kickapoo State Park, which is a 62-mile round trip from my house. And it was just a pleasure to do that on this bike.
Can you see that that comment there, Nina, kind of really directed towards you here? Kurt Fisher says, I am also an artist. I ride a recumbent and am car free too, which we're going to get into here shortly. Cool. And I also have a cat. So it seems as though Nina is kind of a kindred spirit. Yeah, it would seem so. Kurt,
we might be the same people. Yeah. I see that. Where does Kurt Fisher live, I wonder?
Kurt, answer that question for us. If you can't pop that on there, we'll let you know where that is.
All right. Anyway, let's carry on. Okay, next. Yeah, and then this is just more pictures of my bike. So for a while, I think I just had Butch, the Tour Easy, and Frosty, the Mango. I think at that point I had sold the Grasshopper. Reason I sold it was because I could not get used to a helmet mirror or eyeglasses mirror. And because it had underseat steering, I just could not mount a mirror on that, and I was reliant on some other mirror system. And the Tour Easy has a Miracle on the side, you know, a Miracle mirror, and I just vastly prefer that. So it's weird that this like small, relatively small detail actually dictates what kind of bikes I ride. And the Grasshopper was really nice, but I couldn't stand the helmet mirror. Next. Sadie, the Saturday. Right. So my obsession with folding continues. I was like, oh, if only I had a folding recumbent. So one of these came up. I think this was on Bent Rider too. I bought it. I rode it. The handlebars came off during a ride once because of some weird thing that a previous owner had done to the handlebar. It rattled. It was sort of my danger bike, but I did give it a good shot.
What? So you were riding when the handlebars came off?
Yes, it was funny.
May I ask?
It
What transposed when you were suddenly looking at the handlebars?
wasn't the handlebar; it was the whole steering. It was the steering.
The stem. I mean,
the stem. Yeah, the stem, which I knew might happen because it was a stem that wasn't supposed to be on the bike, and it was attached with this incompatible.
So,
thing.
Yeah, so I'm taking it that you were going very slowly and you were going to throw your feet down or something. And
I was actually going uphill, so I was slow, and it just sort of like held it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my foot down, and I didn't get super injured, and I just put the thing back, right? Like I had messed with this bike enough to know that the handlebars were sort of held in with tension, and that if I just rammed them back in, they would stay for a while. But that was still rather memorable, just like falling off the Rams rocket was memorable.
There's Kurt replying, you were right. He is in Germany. So he's in Bavaria, next to the Austrian border between Munich and Salzburg. So thank you, Kurt. Great to have you with us today.
Guten Abend, Kurt, mein Doppelganger.
Yeah, I think he may be your doppelganger in many ways. Anyways.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So that's the Saturday semi-folded, quick folded. At the time, what I wanted to do was take long rides with a tailwind, and then if I was visiting friends, get rides home with them. So having the folding bike would have been good. Yeah, I sold this bike. So keep going. This showed up in the Bent Rider classifieds. It's a Golden Girls Gold Rush, size small. It wasn't being ridden. I got it for a really great price. And oh, did I love this bike. Keep going. I had to get a bigger front chainring because the chainring that it came with, I was spinning all the time. So I could actually go quite fast on this. It came with a letter signed by Gardner Martin. And I'm using past tense because this summer I finally sold this bike to a friend of mine who is local, who has promised to sell it back to me if she ever doesn't want it anymore. But fantastic bike. Yeah, light, fast, fun. Slightly too small for me. I made do. Next. And then this is Bentley, the Quadrabent. I bought this used off of Craigslist St. Louis after trying one of these Quadrabents at Recumbent CycleCon in Cincinnati, which was that was 3 years ago? That was where I met you, Gary. And also where I met Larry. Anyway, this was just like so much fun. I knew it wasn't going to be fast, but it was super fun. And also because I am a bicycle evangelist and a recumbent evangelist, I figured this would be great for recumbent evangelism. So I had a ton of fun on this bike. This actually, that picture was when I rode it with a friend. It was like 100, yeah, I think it would have been close to 100-mile round trip. Then it was like an 80-mile round trip where we went to Amish country and stayed in a bed and breakfast and rode back. Super fun, slow, fun. Okay, next. This is it decked out for the 4th of July because I rode it every year in the parade.
Nina, here's a good friend of the show and a friend of ours, Julie, and her husband, Mark, who always watches together with her. Julie and Mark Lovegrove, they are in Great Britain. And she says it's really great to have a female guest on the show who loves riding two-wheeled recumbents. Julie and Mark both ride two-wheelers. I think Julie rides a Rans Stratus. And I think they have a couple. I know they have a tandem, a Rans tandem, a Screamer as well. I don't know if they've gotten to ride that too much yet, but great two-wheeled recumbent riders there in Kent, England.
Cool.
So Julie and Mark, hello. We're glad to have you with us today. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, so this is me trying to convert friends of mine to recumbents. I actually did convert the woman on the left, I'm happy to say. Keep going. Next. This is Bentley the Quadrabent carrying my Brompton. So when I needed service, I put the Brompton in the back, rode it to the mechanic's place, rode the Brompton home, and when I picked it up, I did the same thing in reverse. Next. This was my collection of bikes, I think, in 2017. So that's Butch, and then Bentley the Quadrabent, and then Silver the Gold Rush, and then Frosty the Velomobile. That's what I had at the time. Those actually all fit in my garage, right? So this is the overseat steering grasshopper that I bought because I was thinking, well, if I get an overseat steering grasshopper, I'll have this nice recumbent that folds and be able to use the miracle mirror. Maybe that will be good. So once again, Bent Rider Classifieds, they had it. I ended up selling this because it was just too slow. By that time, I was actually getting into speed, which kind of surprised me because I'm not an athlete. But when you can go faster, I don't know, it was just sort of a bummer to go that much slower on this bike. So,
here's Andy the gardener saying, I have a cat too. I'm a failed architect, used to draw a lot. It seems creatives, or creative-ish in my case, are attracted to weird bikes. So we're going to probably get into that a little bit later on and talk about how the creativity part comes in. Unless you want to stop and talk about that now, we can.
Either way,
let's continue with the slideshow.
Yeah.
Let's go through that, and then we will, Andy, we'll talk about that. I promise. So
I want to get these dang slides out of the way, right?
Let me get them out of the way.
Faster bike went fast. Oh no, wait, no, that's my fold rush. Yes, right. So
this is a big part of the story. Yeah.
Yes, I sold the grasshopper, and then was determined to get a fold rush. So I scoured Craigslist ads all over the US and finally found one for sale in Austin, Texas, and found somebody in Austin, Texas to help me obtain this bike and to check it out and all that sort of stuff. So I obtained this bike, fantastic bike, love this bike. Its name is Foldy Locks. There it is, folded. Loved this bike. Keep going, next. Only problem with that bike, by the way, and I've just sold it.
Let's back up that one slide there, because I do maybe want to ask a few questions. Go ahead, finish. Yeah. What's the problem?
Well, okay, there's a couple of problems. One is that folding it, that's like as folded as you can fold it pretty much. And it doesn't really fold. It folds under. There's convenience about it, but it doesn't fold to the point where you can actually get it in somebody's car that wouldn't also be able to hold it unfolded. On the other hand, what's fantastic about it was, well, the bike was just in pristine condition and it's super, super comfortable.
And the reason that one of the reasons it's comfortable, maybe you're going there already, it has, as part of its folding mechanism built into it, there's an elastomer, right? That is part of somewhat of a suspension. And so Can you talk to us about that? Does that work well for you? And do you like that part of it?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it makes it more comfortable and it makes it a little bit slower.
Trey is pointing out that's where it is in the folding position anyways. There's the elastomer down there. Yeah, go ahead.
The fold rush. The Brompton actually uses a similar mechanism, those folding bikes that I also like. That the bike has a wheel that swings, the rear triangle swings under, you can have that kind of suspension system. Right, so that is the last bike that I sold. I sold it like last month, and I'm sad about it, but I didn't ride it enough because it didn't really fold enough, and my other bikes were all faster, and I just wasn't riding it as much as the others. And I need room in the garage because I keep getting more bikes. So next, this is the P38 Voyager that I bought. Its name is Shazam. I should say her name is Shazam. That's the pronoun I use for my bikes. It lives in a box. She lives in a box. I put her together and took her apart 3 times. I was supposed to travel this year to a whole lot of places. And the plan was to take this bike with me because that's the frustration of traveling, is I can't bike.
Right. As opposed, well, the ideas for all your folding bikes were, of course, to be able to travel. And although this Traveler, the P38 Traveler, isn't folding, it does come apart and is meant to be traveled with. So that was another great idea for. They're very rare folding recumbents, and Pete Stull has his linear. He's got one that will fit into a tube and airline transportable tube. But it's a type of recumbent that we don't hear too much about, and it's kind of a unique scenario. But for someone who travels a lot like you, so you, as an animator, of course, you go to various film festivals and things. This is typically, or you're asked to speak at various places around the world. So typically in a non-COVID year, you might be traveling a lot and you want to be able to ride. So maybe we can take a minute here, because that's something that I haven't really done much of, and probably many of our viewers haven't either. So when you travel like that, if you're going as a guest somewhere and and you want to ride. So typically, how does that go? Is this a good way to explore a city you're in, or why do you do this?
Oh, riding is just, it's great. Well, for one thing, I ride. The main reason I ride is mood management. It's like a way to reset my head. I mean, there's tons of other benefits as well, but that was the main thing. So traveling is stressful and new cities are interesting. Yeah, it's just great. Biking around, it's like you get to see stuff. You have control of your own movement. I hate being in buses. And you get to work off some stress.
And ride in really different places that
Yeah.
than you're used to.
Larry
Varney, you're back with us. I see. Yeah. Well, let's wake Larry up for a second. Can we bring Larry up for a second? We haven't mentioned this, but I happen to know, Larry, that you are big into Bromptons as well. And
I competed in the Brompton World Championship in London in 2017. I finished about halfway in the pack, only at 300, I think, or 301.
Nice. Do you read Bike Snob NYC?
What's that?
Do you read the blog Bike Snob?
I used to. That was when I had a different computer. I don't think I'm subscribed to it anymore. Yeah,
because he wrote about that race as well.
Yeah.
So the two of you, I don't know. So Kurt again is saying, does Nina know there was a recumbent conversion set by Julian Nuss to convert a Brompton into a recumbent, and no longer in production as far as you know. So what do you know about it, Nina?
I've heard
or Larry,
in pictures, but I've never actually seen one live. I thought it'd be kind of neat, but anything that's that small and folds and is recumbent, I'm interested in.
Yeah, as is Nina. So all right,
Larry, have you heard of? I think it's called the Torturaga. There's like a, I think it's Korean, maybe it's Taiwanese. Anyway, I'll look it up while somebody else is talking. I want to try one. It's sort of semi-recumbent folder.
Oh yeah, and I've got 2 Bike Fridays plus the Brompton. I always say, my motto on one of my caps that I got from anyway, it says "Get bent or fold it." So
there's a good motto. So all right, Larry, thank you. I'll send you back to your little house again for now. Thanks for coming up.
Yeah.
We've got here's Susan Scott agrees with you on mood management for the bike riding. So thank you, Susan, for that. And
all right, let's continue.
Let's go back. You want to go back to the slides?
Get out of them. Right. Oh wait, what's the previous one? The previous one was that one. I should say that I get all of my bikes used. I have, they're all used.
We should probably, when we get down to the slides, I'd like to maybe talk about that process.
Except the Bromptons. I've gotten the Bromptons almost entirely new, but all my recumbents used. Okay, so the next one, this is Hibiscus. This is an amazing bike that I got on the Facebook recumbent classifieds. Is one of a kind. It was built by the frame builder Tom Teasdale. It was designed by the seller Ron Corbin. The next slide, I think, is a picture of the ad that I responded to. It has really high-end components. It was built in the late 1990s. That seat, which I got a new cover for, according to Ron, was laid up by Fast Freddie Markham sometime in the mid to late 90s. So it's an Easy Racer seat. But if you look at this bike carefully, you'll see it has a mid-drive or a jack shaft. So it doesn't exactly fold. You have to do a little bit of disassembly in order to fold it, but it folds around that, that thing there. Is there a picture of it folded? Yeah, the next slide, I think. This is one that the same person, Ron, also designed and owned, so he showed a picture of it folded. Unlike the Fold Rush, this is really heavy steel, so Hibiscus weighs basically 40 pounds. Next. And there she is, folded in my friend's car when he delivered her. It's not like it's not a minor thing to fold the bike. You have to take parts off, but it does bend, and the suspension is exquisite, and it came with thick tires that I kept. So this is actually the gravel bent that I did not know that I wanted, and you can see I got it for a song. So I love this bike. This is one I did not sell when I had to make room in my garage. Yeah, there it is, off-road. I can ride it off-road, so much fun. Next. Yeah, I just have lots of pictures of it going along paths. Next. This is actually currently, oh yeah, that's mud on it because I rode on a really muddy trail. So that's right before I washed it down. So speaking of traveling with bents, this bike, is there another picture of it? Go to the next one. Next slide. Nope. Okay, if you go back to them, we can look at this bike while I talk about, go back one more, just so it doesn't look totally horrible. Oh, well, never mind. So yeah, that one. Okay, cool. Another bent rider user contacted me recently and said he was visiting Central Illinois and would I rent him one of my bikes? So this bike is currently on loan to him. But the fact that he asked me this, like, that makes so much sense. Like, why did I never do that? Every time I've traveled wanting to have a bike, it's either like take the bike with you or rent a bike when you get there. And even when I visited the Netherlands, there were no recumbent rentals. And I've wanted Rent-A-Bent to exist for a long time, and it just doesn't. There's not the supply or the demand for recumbent rentals. And him contacting me was like, that's so easy. And it's like, we should be Airbnb-ing our recumbents, right? Like, how many of us have garages full of them and then want to ride some when we travel? So I was really impressed that this person did that. And if I do travel again, I think I'm going to try it that way.
Yeah, it's a discussion you see occasionally pop up, and more in terms of people asking, "I'm going to be traveling to this area. I'm going to Europe. Where can I?" So I think you will find that there are a number of bike shops, recumbent bike shops, that will rent out their test bikes, but those, I mean, to be fair, are very few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always easy. I have seen that in Germany, for instance. But yeah, it would be a great idea, and the only way to do that, I think, is through social media. So I mean, it's going to have to be on a Facebook group or Bent Rider or something like that, where you're going to have to say, I'm going someplace, and somebody in that area. Trey, you have something?
Yeah. What I was going to, I have a garage full of bent. So every time we go to a group ride, I take a trailer full of them, and I offer people, let's go for a ride, because we'll get done with a long ride and everybody's rubbing their necks and their butt and their elbow, and I'm like, well, have a seat. They'll sit down on one of the trikes or one of our two-wheel bikes, and from sitting to they start, I'm just going to take it around the parking lot. And then next thing you know, 45 minutes later, they're off on a trail. We just finished with a 30 or a 40 mile ride, and they go ride another 20 miles and come back and go, man, this is awesome. So that's how we do it. We don't rent them, but I thought about it the same way you did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this guy's using it for 3 weeks. So I'm like, okay, rental's okay.
Cool.
It's not much. Also, I was glad that I have this particular bike because hibiscus, I think, is indestructible. 40 pounds of purple steel, really hard to trash this bike from somebody that loves recumbents. I trust him. Obviously, I trust him with my beloved bike. Okay, my next bike.
If we can, I'm sorry. Let's since we kind of have paused, anyways. Let's catch up. We've got some chat here I wanted to bring up. So, from our buddy Zach Kaplan, who owns Zach Kaplan bikes in California, says, interesting that you found the HB Velotechnik International Grasshopper FX2 slow. I've been riding Grasshopper since 2009, mostly for commuting and errands, but I've also done a number of century rides on the Grasshopper, up to 200K in one day, and some hilly rides such as the top of Mount Diablo. While it is slower than some of my bikes, I don't find it excruciatingly slow. So, now Zach's a good rider. So, I think maybe he can overcome some of it, but he finds it not to be. But, you were looking for something a little more sleek, I think.
It was just, I don't think it's a really nice bike, right? It's a really super comfortable bike. The Grasshopper is, because it has all that suspension. But yeah, the suspension, the suspension will do that. If I did more off-road riding at the time, and also, short wheelbase, right? Like my favorite short wheelbase is the P38. It's still short wheelbase, but I feel more comfortable on it than others. But I seem to be like a long wheelbase person.
Sure.
And there's like a lot of factors. If it were just that it were slower, but it was like a little slower, and I was still like, I don't know, it just wasn't for me.
didn't meet the goals that you were looking for. So Andy says recumbents are interesting from a design point of view and a bit flamboyant. We artists are just a bunch of geeky show-offs. I love riding my cat trike. Whenever I'm feeling down, it makes me smile. So, yep. And there is that thing about many of us also. I mean, we talk about how people stop and stare, or, you know, or sometimes little kids will say cool bike and stuff. So there's that aspect of, you know, making a spectacle of yourself. I don't know if you are that type of person. Clearly I'm not, but do you have people making comments and stuff as you ride by, and do you enjoy that?
I do have people making comments. The velomobile is a thing. That, you know, I'll have drivers slow down and endanger my life and theirs and the whole streets because they want to chat with me while I'm riding the velomobile. And I mean, I do want people to know about recumbents, so I think it's great that people are interested. It's just sometimes dangerous situations happen because of friendly gawking drivers with the velomobile. With the bikes,
sure.
You know, you just go by and people are like, "Oh, that's cool."
Julie says, we saw one of the converted recumbent Bromptons at Spetsy a few years ago. It was a very cool bike. So they actually saw one there. Room 360, are you a digital or traditional artist? The answer is
Both?
yes.
Yes, exactly.
And, oh, so here's my pal, Lee Kreider. Now, Lee has a YouTube channel, and he does the Ohio Ram Show, and he specializes in talking about extended rides, like the Ram rides, especially the Ram ride, the race across America and such, mostly upright bikes, but occasionally recumbents as well. And so he's not really used to recumbents, and he asks about the fork on some of these long wheelbases. I'm sure is what he's talking about. It seems to have a lot of rake. I don't know. Can we maybe Doug? Can we bring Doug and Hansa up, please? And for someone, for upright riders, especially who aren't used to it, let's start with Doug. Why so? Yeah, thank you, Trey. Why so much rake on the fork on these bikes?
Well, I mean, a lot of them like this will have a very long fork. It slows down and reduces the turning arcs on them, which makes them much more casual. But you could look at other recumbents like a Vision, for example, which will have a very short rake and be very sportive and quick. So, and like a Day 6 would be another one that's very long. Basically, the rank angle changes the characteristics, the dynamics, and the turning speed, how fast it responds, as well as the pivot point on that on the bike. And so each designer has a goal for these. When you look at the long wheelbase bikes like the one we were just showing, it's designed more of a touring bike, and it really wants a slower rake. You're going to have potentially more load on it. And so they will extend the rakes out, slow the turning down, and you know, some people will say it makes it less twitchy, whereas a more sportive bike will have a shorter rake. You see this in road bikes too. If you look at the difference between a touring road bike and a racing style road bike.
Good. All right. Thank you, Doug. And let's keep Hansi here. I'm going to show, let's see here. So Sean says, I have an AZUB origami, which folds up easily and is nice to ride. So that's one we could look into. And we're going to ask Hans about that in a second.
I wanted to try the origami when I was at Recumbent CycleCon, but they didn't have one.
I don't remember seeing it there.
Yeah.
William says there's a website that is sort of an Airbnb for bikes.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you know what it is?
Spinlister.
Spinlister.
Spinlister.com. And it doesn't have, I mean, I've done searches on recumbents, and there's almost, I think recumbents I think we need to make our own thing. I really do.
A bent lister or something like that, right?
No, rent a bent.
Rent a bent.
Yeah.
That could get into trouble. I don't know. Hansa, so I see you posted here, and you let us know. You can come up and talk anytime. So we were talking about renting recumbents, and I said that it's bike shops do. What's your experience? And Hansa's done a ton of touring around. So what's your experience with renting recumbents in Europe, at least?
Well, I have I have never rented a bike in Europe.
But you know about it, obviously, right?
Yeah, it's what basically it's like you said it. You can rent a bike in almost every recumbent shop in Europe, if I know. But of course they may be very far away from each other. So if you land in Stockholm, it's probably 600-700 miles to get to the closer recumbent shop. But in Germany, it's probably much easier, or Austria or France. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Hansa. Thank you, Doug. All right. So we go ahead.
I gotta say, you have to be careful in the cities, especially in the U.S. now, because we've gone through this dockless bike station pandemic a little bit, where a lot of the cities have now enacted, regulations over these things, and it's put a lot of bike shops out of the rental business. For like in my city, it's very, very, very expensive for me to rent bikes because each one of them would have to carry liability insurance, which is sky high, and nobody will rent a bike for the price I would have to charge. So we've got a kind of a discord here in the U.S. where the dockless bike systems, which were fantastic idea for transportation, have actually negatively impacted the bike shop rental businesses.
Good. All right, guys. Let's go back to the dreaded slideshow, which we cannot seem to wait our through. No, it's great. The pictures are great. Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay, so this is the tie rush, the coveted tie rush that I wanted since I knew it existed. I finally got one. The only one that was like on the market was also a size small, which is again a little bit too small for me. So the seat has to ride a little bit behind the rails. I had a machine shop modify the rails a little bit so it's stable. But this is Titania, the haunted tie rush. Haunted because you would think, a tie rush from 2014, what could go wrong? But it lived in Florida and had some of the worst aluminum corrosion I'd ever seen.
Nina, could you explain to folks who may not know what a tie rush is a little bit more specifically?
It's the titanium Easy Racers long wheelbase,
Right, like it's a gold rush in titanium, right? Is basically
the forever bike. And I kicked myself for not buying various other ones that came up for sale. And because Easy Racers is no longer functionally in business, you can only get these sold. I like the geometry of Easy Racers bikes. I really do. So anyway, the bike was haunted. Things broke. The seat plate mount broke while I was on a 60-mile ride. I managed to ride it back when it was broken like that because the struts were enough. But you can see all the corrosion, right? Like, I guess that's the salt air in Florida, or maybe just haunting, I was like, how can all these things be wrong with the bike? Various other things were really messed up on this bike. So I just eventually determined it was haunted and had an exorcism for it.
All right. So now, I'm going to have to stop here because I had this later on, but we need, I think, to share with our viewers a little bit more about this exorcism. So you had this amazing bike that you always wanted, but it just would not cooperate, and you had all these maintenance issues with it. And so you wanted to perform an exorcism on it. So tell us about the exorcism. And then I understand you wrote a poem about the exorcism. So
not about it. So I needed to learn about exorcisms. Also, I needed to learn about goddesses of bicycles because I thought, well, I should be praying to some goddess. And there is a Catholic one, but it just, the art around it wasn't quite right. And I couldn't find any Catholic bicycle exorcisms. So I just went whole hog and found another goddess who is, I call her Velospe Cycladia, goddess of bikes and bicycles. Specifically for this exorcism, I found an image of her. There she is. This is from a French bike poster from a brand of bicycle called, is it Victory? I should even look that up. Sorry, my brain isn't working right now. So I did that, and then I read, existing exorcism prayers, and I wrote my own bicycle exorcism prayer, and I made a little ritual. I also made these amulets. This is a magic, because I learned that amulets were part of an exorcism. So this is the, this is the eye, to ward off the evil eye. Whoops, this is like backwards. These are a pair of master links, 9-speed master links. This is a Prested Schrader converter for flat tire. This is a dragon symbolizing the dragon wings of Velocipe's helmet. This is a sword, which represents her pneumatic sword, which inflates the tires of the faithful.
All right, and so there was a prayer. It wasn't a.
Yes.
It wasn't. Yes.
It's a long exorcism. If you can stand it, it's long.
I think we need to hear it. Who among us has not had problems with their bikes at one time or another and has nearly given up? And so instead of giving up, you might try this.
Yeah, I tried everything, and I had a whole ritual. But this is the prayer book that comes with the amulet. I made some extra amulets. I do sell these on palegraylabs.com. They're kind of hidden under other. But this is the prayer for exorcism, which I will read. In the name of Velocipe Cycladia, goddess of bicycles and protector of riders, muse of mechanics and engineers, who hast inspired and brought forth the greatest achievement of human technology, the bicycle, we confidently undertake to repulse the attacks and deceits of poor maintenance. Cast out from this bicycle all corrosion and corroding agents. Defend her components from gunging up, her metal parts from bending and snapping, her chain from stretching. From cracks and gouges, we beg you, great goddess, preserve the structural integrity of her frame. Let not her sprockets wear down, nor her bearings become pitted. O Lady Liberator, keep forever lubricated and freely moving her chain, bearings, sprockets, cables, pulleys, and pivot points. Protect her tires, that they not be pierced or punctured with road debris, nor worn to the casing, and keep her tubes free of leaks and tears. Grant that her struts and spokes be strong and her wheels true. May her bolts remain bolted, her fasteners fast, her clamps clamped, her Loctite tight, and her nylocks locked. May any mistreatment, abuse, weirdness, improper maintenance, and sadness instilled in this machine by previous handlers be cast out now and forever. We drive you from this bicycle, all unclean spirits, all corrosive powers, all cracks and abrasives, all incorrect lubricants, solvents, and salts. The sacred sign of the wheel commands you, as does the power of the mysteries of Velocipe. Deign, O goddess Cycladia, to grant this bicycle's rider the foresight to maintain her, to clean her as needed, and occasionally lube her chain, to check tire pressure and brakes before each ride, to replace parts as they wear out, to apply grease before bolting. Grant this rider the strength, courage, and humility to bring forth this bicycle unto a qualified mechanic when necessary. Fill this rider with the spirit of love and dedication worthy of your blessed bicycle, that together they glorify thy creation. May Velocipe Cycladia be with this bicycle and with thy spirit. Amen.
Wonderful. Look, I think, let's see. Yeah, Joseph says he loves it and he'd like to recite it each time he rides. I would suggest, however, Joseph, you start it the night before. Maybe it's a little bit long for right before each ride, but maybe you could memorize it and recite it as you start. It might be a better idea.
There's other prayers in this book, much shorter ones.
Okay, and they can they find that on your blog?
If they dig on my blog, but I have a different website that I sell stuff through. It's called palegraylabs.com. PALEGRAY.
We will link to that in the description below so folks can find that. There's other things they may be interested in.
And by the way, reading that thing reminded me of all the things that were wrong with that bike. Somebody had lubed her with motor oil. that was one of the many problems. And yeah, there was like so much corrosion, cracks and abrasives. Yeah, it was just, that bike was weird. But it's riding great. It's like I put more than 2,500 miles on her since I got her like 4 months ago. Favorite bike now.
Okay. All right. Let's get back to those slides. Have you finished those yet?
Never
No, I don't think
end.
so. All
right.
right.
That's an example of the bike being haunted, right? 666
yes,
on the trip distance. Next. Oh, right. Geo-writing.
Geo-writing. So I mentioned that as one of the things that you can say is a hobby. What the heck is this?
Well, that was spelling the word woman on a, that was like a 43-mile ride in my county, in the neighboring county.
And that's on Strava or
yeah, that's on Strava, and also Ride with GPS. I was doing that. There's a long story. Are we? How much
Keep
time
going,
do we have?
kiddo. Keep going.
Do we have like unlimited time to just blather forever?
Yeah. Well, you know, we can. People will stop and go and can watch this, you know, in sections. So I want to get it down here.
Okay.
You know,
all right.
I may not have you back for a while, so let's hear it.
So here's the controversial thing. I did this woman ride. It was late last year that I did the first one because Strava was promoting this male athlete who competes as a woman. He identifies as a woman, but he's totally male, and he's setting all these records in women's cycling by just saying that he's a woman. And Strava was encouraging this, and I was not happy about it. So yeah, I did this specifically on Strava and said woman's, adult, human, female. And I don't bike competitively. I'm not an athlete. I don't care about sports. I don't actually follow bike racing, but I was like, oh, don't do this, Strava, you know, like I use you. And same thing with one of the sports beverage powders I drink was also sponsoring this guy. And I was like, don't do this. Is not fair. Not fair to women.
Yeah, and Strava tends not always to be fair to bent riders either. I know, right? There are those segments that bent riders get, and then they're especially like velomobiles, and they are not allowed to stay. So, all right, very good. Let's get back to the slides, and yeah,
okay. The exorcism happened. That is Velocipede Cycladia with a recumbent. Next, and yes, that is. Titania post-exorcism. Now, part of the exorcism process was, of course, getting tons of work done by the local mechanic. So the bike, you know, I was setting myself up for success here. Lots of things are much better on this bike. Although, actually, she still needs a new derailleur, and I put enough miles on her, even since I got her a few months ago, that I have stretched the chain, so she needs a new chain. And I also got a new crank set and bottom bracket. So she's getting basically a new drivetrain soon, the end of this month, in fact. But still, great. Oh, right. And I guess I put that in because...
you didn't put that in at all. I put that in because I wanted folks to see this is quite an accomplishment. This is Nina's mileage as of the 3rd. I suppose you've probably ridden even since then. You have gone over 7,000 miles this year. So she is no piker, folks. She talks about all these recumbents, and she is a serious rider. Look at that. So these miles, first of all, have you ever done this before? Have you ever gone over 7,000 miles?
No, this is a crazy year. I think one year I went 5,000 miles, and I was like, wow, that's so many miles. I'm never going to do that again. Wow. Because I think for me, I think a reasonable year would be like 3,500 miles. That would make sense. But this year we had a pandemic and I couldn't travel. And we also had some nice weather and, you know, a lot of mood management needed to happen. And that's how I do it. And
that's managing a lot of mood.
There was a lot of mood to manage. Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty happy, but probably a lot of bicycling was.
Yeah.
Part of
well,
that.
congratulations. Yeah. Honestly, that's amazing right there. So let's go back to the slides here. Let's finish up here. I think
that is the Thai Javelin, my most recent acquisition. So I didn't even know what this bike was until I saw someone selling it on Bent Rider. And because I was riding around my formerly haunted, slightly too small tie rush, I thought, oh, if I get a medium, if I see a medium up for sale, I'll try to get one of those. And this was a medium, although not a tie rush. And I just became fascinated with it. I've written about this on my blog. This is like an extremely unusual bike. Only 10 of them were made. And I have since put close to 300 miles on it. However, since my last ride, I know I'm going to sell this bike. So that's my announcement. This beautiful tie Javelin is going to move on to somebody else at some point, because it really needs to be ridden with a fairing to take advantage of its geometry. You can see how much higher that bottom bracket is. And I just don't like riding my two-wheelers with fairings. I have a velomobile if I need a fairing. And yeah, it's a gorgeous bike.
Okay. And so we'll have your email address at ninapaley.com, I think.
Well, I'll list it at some point.
We will put that in the description below for those of you chomping at the bit to buy this Javelin. And okay. Is there one more?
Is there?
I think that's it.
I think that's it. We're up to
yeah. Trey is shaking his head. I can hear the rattling all the way up here in Ohio. So we are done with the pictures. Thank you, Trey. Great job on that, and Larry. All right, so let's segue on to some questions. I was going to go over your bikes. I think you pretty much have done that pretty well. All right, I want to ask with the wonderful array of bikes you have, especially the few that you really seem to like a lot now, how do you choose from day to day? You're riding 7,000 miles a year. How do you choose from day to day what you're going to ride?
Well, now my bikes are down to the Javelin, which I've decided I'm not going to ride anymore. I'm going to sell it. The Tour Easy, I got a separable Tour Easy, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. Butch has moved on, and I got a Tour Easy that has couplers. So the Tour Easy, it's really between the Tour Easy and Titania, the Tie Rush, and Hibiscus, that purple one.
And
Hibiscus,
Frosty, right?
And Frosty, yes, Frosty. So Frosty is the cold weather ride. If it's cold or if it's extremely windy. So yeah, wind management is best and better for cold. That's it. Like I hardly rode her all summer. If it's in the middle of the summer, she's also good because she has that Flevo roof. So if I have to go out and do an errand in the middle of the day, I can have portable shade. That's actually important, but mostly don't ride her in the summer. Connie, the Tour Easy, I rode to Indianapolis. Oh yeah, you left it. What happened to the slides of Connie in front of the Indianapolis Speedway? That was one of the slides. Yeah.
I don't know if I remember seeing that one.
Anyway, so last Christmas it was really warm. So on Christmas Eve, I actually rode halfway to Indianapolis, stayed at a Airbnb, and then rode the rest of the way. So it was 140 miles one way. And that's what I did because it was warm. And Connie's the perfect bike for that. She's a Tour Easy, you can put stuff in her, you can load her up. And yeah, and also she's my utility bike. Steel, she's strong, she has a rack and panniers and, errands and stuff. If I want to go a long way and don't have to carry much stuff, I'm going to ride Titania. She's comfy. If I need to ride on gravel or if I want to go off-road at all, I'm going to ride Hibiscus because, she has the suspension and the thicker tires. So yeah, it depends on what kind of surface I'm going to be on and whether I'm going to carry stuff.
Okay. Now, how about, you've obviously bought and sold a lot of bikes here. So this is constantly, obviously you're constantly watching and seeing what's up for sale and such. So you already told us you only pretty much buy used. So what's the process going on in your mind about what you want to buy? Are you looking for something in particular each time, or just whatever strikes your fancy when you see something up for sale?
Well, this year was the year I was going to buy a tie rush. And it happens that I saw Hibiscus when I was looking for a tie rush. And I just went, this is so cool. So I bought her. And at this point, I think I may have actually come to the end of the road, right? Like I bought a titanium bike. I bought the Javelin, and it's like, I'm not going to keep this one. Like, I think I have the bike that I want. Although if I see a small medium or a medium tie rush, I might actually buy that as well and sell Titania. Not sure. But at this point, I'm not looking for something anymore. I am just looking to be entertained, because it's amazing how like strange things keep popping up, right? Like this year, I thought I'd seen them all, and Hibiscus is this one of a kind, amazing bike. And same thing with the Thai Javelin. Well, it's a 10 of a kind amazing bike, but I'm still learning about bikes. That's sort of how I learned about bikes.
Yeah, by buying them and riding them. I mean, there's really no better way, I suppose. So very good. All right. I think it's time to talk about another major philosophy of your biking having to do with car-free living. So you have actually, you had a lecture that was made into a YouTube video in which you did the entire subject was car-free life. So maybe you could, if you can, just give us a short synopsis of your ideas and how they came about in terms of living without a car in a society that we have now, which is all about cars. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, well, basically in that talk, I said what allows me to live without a car is that I hate cars, and that actually seems to be a requirement. Like, I really don't like them. If I liked cars, I would not be car free. If I enjoyed driving, I would drive, but I don't. I have a valid driver's license, legally valid. I don't think it's morally valid. I wouldn't put me behind a wheel. I have driven, I've just never owned one. And it's just because I really don't like them. It's sort of that simple. Like, if you like cars, you're probably, if you manage to give up cars and you really like cars, you're going to follow a really different path than me. But it's like not a big, it's not that hard when you hate them,
So I think it's fair to say that people who live in large cities with public transportation, first of all, or also, of course, where things tend to be a little closer together, either public transportation or biking, commuting and doing your errands and such makes more sense than someone who lives in a small suburban area or rural area, that kind of thing. Is that fair to say? And do you think that plays to your advantage? Is it like that where you live?
Yeah, I mean, I lived in San Francisco for 11 years, and I lived in New York City for 10 years. I lived in Santa Cruz for a while. That was different. One thing that's different now is everything is delivered now. So I actually do wonder, could I live in a more remote place without a car? I don't know. I think about it.
In the days of Amazon, that's certainly fair to say, where you might have run out to get almost anything, and unless you needed it like that day, you can pick anything up from Amazon, as we all know, that we've discovered now. So that's a fair, interesting new point, I think. So,
but I don't know. I mean, I like riding around here. Of course, have lots of fantasies about living in the country because I'm out there all the time, and I think about it. And people always say, like, oh, if you live out there, you need a car. You probably need a truck. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going anywhere soon because I live with my aging mother and will continue to do so as long as she needs me. But right. Yeah, think about it.
All right. And Susan asks, have you ever had issue with numbness in the feet or hands after a long ride? So do you get that?
On the upright bike, absolutely. Hands go numb, almost immediately for me on an upright bike, or an up-wrong, I should say. On the recumbents, my hands are fine. My feet, if the bottom bracket is high, I will get tingly toes. I used to have issues with that on the Grasshopper, actually. Not horrible. I would just get off every, 10, 15 miles and just walk around. Yeah.
Michael wants to know, do you use USBR maps for longer rides? I'm not sure I know what that is.
Yeah, I don't know what a USBR map is.
So do you use maps if you're going someplace you don't know?
Well, okay.
If you're not familiar with.
All right. So I don't know if you've looked at a map of central Illinois, but our roads here are laid on a grid, and it's really hard to get lost. in central Illinois. I do look at maps. I've actually learned to look at maps looking for variation, because otherwise you're just on one long straight road after another. And this year, actually, I biked enough to get to know my county more intimately than I ever had before, especially the rivers. So we have some small rivers winding here and there. And yeah, I mean, I'll look at maps for rivers and water and anything that's going to break up the otherwise flat and monotonous landscape. And, you know, so yeah, sometimes I find roads that I just haven't been on, but it's for variety. It's not for getting lost.
All right. Yeah, Hansa had a comment there earlier about how where he is, there's nothing at right angles, so he can't write much of anything, I guess. So it's and all right, I guess.
Oh, USBR says US
there we go.
routes.
United States
Yeah.
bicycle routes. Yeah, is that? Yeah.
Think about the adventure cyclists. They use those maps.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So another
Trey.
thing about where I live is it's farm country, and this county in particular has pretty decent paved roads like every mile. So
okay.
I mean, I've tried on bigger rides. I've tried using what I wish they had maps of was really up-to-date maps about where gravel is, because once I rode to Chicago in the velomobile, thinking that the roads up north would be similar to the roads here, and they weren't. And they looked like perfectly good roads, and they had just been dumped with so much gravel that I practically couldn't move on the velomobile. Like, it just spins on gravel. And there was no way for me to know where I could ride. And I ended up going on a truck route, and it was really traumatic and horrible. So yeah, that would be useful. But here, you know, I can just count on pretty good roads. And if there's gravel, you know, on 1 mile, then I know that a mile later I'll be able to turn and go somewhere where there's not gravel.
Good. All right. So here's my pal, Jim Pratt. Jim is actually an American living in Copenhagen. And actually, when we talk about trips being canceled, we were planning to go to Amsterdam to cover the World Human Powered World Championships this year. Of course, that got canceled. And then Jim was going to meet us there, and we were going to go back with him to Copenhagen and do some riding. He does have a bunch of recumbents, and he, I think, kind of wants to do just what you were talking about. I should have mentioned this earlier. So Denmark checking in, wanted to make sure I caught the Nina interview. Nina, when COVID lightens up, you're welcome to come to Denmark. I got 6 bents to choose from. So thank you, Jim. Let's see. Here is Kurt again. Can you ever imagine getting tired of riding recumbents? We have talked on the show before about the fate of two-wheeled recumbents. Trikes are doing great right now, but two-wheeled, in terms of new sales, and you're buying used, but in terms of new sales of two-wheeled recumbents, this is not necessarily a booming business right now. So I guess just doing this show with you is kind of important, because it does show the benefits of doing that and how much you love doing that. So thank you.
Yeah, so the board thing, that actually has a lot to do with my buying and selling bikes. So here I am in central Illinois, which is mostly pretty boring landscape. And if I were riding the same bike for, you know, if I only had one bike, I probably would get a lot more bored. But the great thing about getting new bikes is that you can take the same routes and it's a different experience on a different bike. And that is actually a big reason why I look for new bikes, is to mix that up.
It does. That makes it more interesting for you. All right. Let's get back to the questions. You know what? Let's, at this point, I think we will kind of finish up with talking about your art and creativity and the kinds of things we kind of alluded to earlier. So you mentioned to me, I told everyone that you had done that drawing for Laidback Bike Report, the adventurer, the Triker adventurer drawing. And you mentioned to me that drawing bikes is hard. You've drawn a lot of things. So what's that all about? What's so hard about drawing a bike?
Every time, like, I don't know, every time I have to do first a little sketch to remind me of how a bike fits together. It's just like, there's two wheels, right? And then there's something that connects between, and every time I have to make a little diagram that, just to remind myself. And then just this whole thing with like the round things, and you have to, straight lines and circles. It's like, how about you draw a bike? Everybody here, draw a bike.
I'm glad you weren't talking to me, because
if anyone's wondering about
I
this.
can't draw a stick man. I don't know how I would do that. So yeah, I imagine looking at it does look like it would be really difficult, knowing where things attach and making sure everything is lined up and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I can see that as being a problem. So all right.
It's not like animal. I don't know. It's not like faces. It's just, it's hard. It's stressful.
Yeah.
And when I say stressful, I mean just in comparison with other things, right? Like I draw pretty fast, but the bike's always going to take some thinking.
I think you do an amazing job. I'm thinking what I want to do here. Maybe I can share that. Yeah, let's make that big. I'm going to share my screen, guys, because I really should be showing this to you. Let's see.
Is this the making of video of the drawing?
There we go. So yeah, I don't know if I can make that any smaller. That you guys can see that pretty. So here's the drawing that Nina did. Yeah, thank you. And it's part of our new logo. She's drawn a logo for us even before. The horse on a long wheelbase actually looked like a touristy kind of thing. But this is the latest Laidback Bike Report logo, and that's, I guess, ostensibly me forging ahead with a long sword, which you never know when you're going to need that on the trail. So thank you for doing that. It's just great. And yeah, guys, if you check our Facebook page, you will see that. And you can also see, I posted a link to, and I'll post it, I guess, down here too. You can see how Nina draws those. She does a time lapse. So it looks like she does it all in like about a minute, but I think it takes a little longer than that, Nina.
That took 43 minutes.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right. So let me get done with that. And let me go back to my script.
I thought one of the things I could talk about is like my dream recumbent, right? Like, I don't know.
I was going to get to that.
Think about like, if you could design your own recumbent, what would it be? And mine would be very similar to hibiscus, but made of titanium.
Okay.
Like a folding one with two chains and a jack shaft and, the mid drive. So it would still fold and also have some quick releases to fold more easily and to remove the seat quickly and fold down the handlebars and titanium.
It's all about titanium these days for you, clearly.
It is. Titanium is amazing. I love my Tyrush.
All right. We also chatted briefly about this is kind of way out there, but we talked about videos, documentaries, and things that have that cover recumbents, and there's really not a whole lot out there. And you had mused, I guess would be the word, from time to time about maybe doing a documentary about what you call the heyday of recumbent bikes. Tell us about those ideas. I don't know how strongly you feel about actually doing this, but tell us what your idea would be to do something.
Yeah, well, I'm interested in the golden age of recumbents, at least in the United States, because there was a golden age. It seems to be the 80s and 90s. And one reason I'm interested in it is I am buying these used bikes, from older men, usually, who were there. And I talk to them at length on the phone when I'm in the process of buying or sometimes selling. And they have stories, like Hibiscus, her seat was laid up by Fast Freddie Markham. I'm like, that's an interesting little detail. It's one that I think is really cool and care about, but most people probably, don't. There was this overlap of recumbent development and the development of the personal computer I'm thinking a lot about Easy Racers because obviously I really like Easy Racers bikes. I think I should be. I'm actually kind of curious more about Rands. I think about buying a Rands from time to time. But, you know, I mean, really, I think I'm thinking about Gardner Martin as sort of exemplifying this. And I just like, I would love to see a movie about Gardner Martin and Fast Freddie Markham and, you know, those times, right? Those times when it seemed like recumbents were going to change bicycling and change transportation and sort of change everything the way the personal computer did, but they didn't. And one thing I'm wondering is, what sort of books are there? This is where I should start. What sort of books are there on the history of recumbents? Are there good books about the history of recumbents? I'm sure if there are, probably some of your viewers are the authors. And so actually, first, can you answer that? Like, are there, I mean, I have.
There are books about recumbents that have some history in it. I've seen. I can't tell you right now. It's been a long time since I read it. But let's ask the viewers, and they will bring that to you. Also, I have a fair amount of material that I've collected from interviewing some of the folks from that era. And so, as I mentioned to you earlier, if you do decide to go that direction, I'm happy to collaborate with you and help you as much as I can. So you would look to then maybe start with that basic background and then interview some people who are still around, who were part of it, or new people who were part of it, and get that on.
Yes.
Get that on film, kind of thing. And
well, I don't know about getting it on film. So I thought more since the last time we talked, right? So like the movie I would like to see, the movie that I thought I would like to see would just be a straight, you know, Hollywood biopic type thing with, you know, handsome actors playing these bike mechanics and racers and, you know, a nice personal story and stuff like that. Well, Hollywood's not going to make a movie like that, and I sure can't. And then I thought, well, maybe I could make a documentary. But I thought about it more, and it's like, no, the reason I don't make documentaries is because of the licensing issues around documentary footage. It's a nightmare. I have a few other obsessions, including the issue.
Yeah, let's talk. We can't leave you without at least mentioning Nina is very well known for her ideas and thoughts around copyright. And so we really can't get too deep into it, and it's not necessarily recumbent related, although it may be in this latest discussion. So could you briefly lay out for our viewers what your ideas around copyright are? They're very interesting.
I'm a copyright abolitionist, and yeah, I think copyright is a terrible idea. And I say that as a professional artist. I was a comics syndicated cartoonist for years. I've been deep in the copyright industries. I'm a filmmaker now. I have been for 15 years, 20 years. So people generally do not expect people with my background to be basically against copyright, but I am. And I free all of my work. That includes the $100 drawings, like what I made for Gary. So even though Gary commissioned that and, you know, made sure it was brought into the world, the resulting drawing actually is functionally in the public domain. Do what you want with it. Yeah, I mean, there you can watch videos of me. There's a pretty well-known
There's
video.
a TED Talk, actually, or
yeah.
a TED Talk
a TEDx talk that I did in the Netherlands, where I was really wishing I could have rented a recumbent bike, but I couldn't when I did that.
We'll list that down in the listings of the links on that. It's another great talk. So
yeah. So anyway, documentary. I was just reminded of the nightmare it would be to license this stuff. And then I remembered that I'm an animator, and even though I don't really want to see another, or, you know, I don't think animation is the best medium for this. The good thing about animation is I could do any sort of recreations I wanted with animation rather than with actors, rather than with, you know, needing documentary footage or anything like that. I would have complete freedom with animation. And I actually am thinking about that now.
See, now we talked about this. I thought that was a natural. Now I think that would be awesome. I'm guessing you're going to hear from a lot of our viewers and have some great support along the lines. If you, I don't have time to put these all up, but we have already a few suggestions about books and others that that you could use along these lines. So
I know there are older books, right? Like I know that during the golden age of recumbents, people were writing about recumbents, but I want to know, has anybody written about the golden age of recumbents, right? Like, has anybody written about the 80s and 90s from now? And also, when I bought Butch, that Tour Easy from Dennis when he left town, he gave me a big stack of, what were those magazines called? They were Recumbent News, I think.
Yeah.
And that really also made me go like, man, like there was such a, people were looking towards this future that did not happen.
It wasn't Recumbent News. It was just that was Bob Bryan that did that. What was the name of that? Somebody in the chat help me out here. I should Recumbent Cyclist News. Was that it? Maybe. Maybe it was, and it was like a monthly, and it was awesome. It was really
it was a magazine.
Nina, I do need to say because I think what we're talking about mostly is the American version of, and we should not leave out the fact that there is also a rich history in Europe, and Jim has also pointed out. So he is good friends with Carl George Rasmussen, who I have interviewed, who created the Lytra velomobile, probably one of the first velomobiles. There is a rich history in Europe as well. So it's something, I don't know. I think if you do this, it's something that might be important for you to keep in mind as well, just as a thought.
Yeah, Recumbent Cyclist News was published from 1990 to 2007 by, Bob and Marilyn Bryant. Nice.
There you go. Yeah. So I used to read that all the time too. It was great.
Yeah.
So, all right. Super. I think that's going to about bring us to the end. I did want to touch on
I should also say that with the vague idea for a recumbent movie, you know, the world, is it the World Human Powered Vehicle Championship? What is Battle Mountain called? So
Battle Mountain is the World Human Powered Speed Challenge.
Speed Challenge, yes. So I would love, I would do animated reenactments of.
Well, that would be beautiful.
That. I mean, can you just imagine when the Gold Rush set the world record and what happened after that? That must have been amazing.
Yeah, yep. And I think just what you could do with your art and the beautiful streamliners and the idea of speed, I would love to see something like that. So we need to continue this and make sure that happens. And I don't know, when that finally gets done, we need to do some sort of debut right here on the Laidback Bike Report for sure.
Counting chickens before they're hatched, my friend.
That's right. That's what I do. So I'm always looking for more chickens. All right, Nina, any final thoughts? I don't want to, if there's anything else on your mind you want to talk about before we leave you.
Let's see. I wanted to say about the fork rake. Those are carbon fiber forks, and I've read on Bent Rider that they can actually rake, which is another reason that I'm not riding my bikes with fairings. And also I wanted to say that Fast Freddie Markham and I follow each other on Strava.
That's a feather in your cap right there to have Fast Freddie.
Yeah, I got to contact. Like if I'm going to pursue this, then I got to interview him, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. He played a big part in all of that. So, all right. Well, I think maybe we should just leave that there. We covered a lot of territory, Nina, and I can't tell you how happy I am to have had you on the show and been able to discuss all these interesting facets of your recumbent life and having you share all that with my audience here. So you're welcome to come back anytime. We will do that. We'll keep our eye on the possibility of that animated video or however it ends up turning out. So Nina Paley, thank you so much, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you. Right on.
All right, thanks. We will. All right, folks, that was Nina Paley. So at this point, let me jump to our thanks for the sponsors who have made this possible today. First of all, we have TerraCycle, don't we? TerraCycle, from fairings to headrests, whatever accessory you need, Pat and crew have you covered. And Trailside Trikes. If you find yourself in Florida near the Withlacoochee Trail, stop in to see Andrew and his crew. And Cruise Bike, Their patented race and record-proven front-wheel drive geometry changes the rules of cycling. Now, comfort doesn't come at the cost of performance, but fair warning, your cheeks may hurt from smiling. And TerraTrike. Wherever your ride leads, TerraTrike has a trike to take you there, including KMX carts and now Greenspeed, known for performance through innovation. And the Hostel Shop. Established in 1974, the Hostel Shop leads the way in providing recumbent bikes and trikes to cyclists across the nation. With over 4 decades of industry knowledge and cycling experience, we're more than just another bike shop. All right, guys, let's jump to the one viewer submission I have. We're really happy to have this from Pauline Simons, and she sent this to me via email. Thought you might like to see some photos of me and my fellow adventurer on our 2-seater side-by-side recumbent tricycle, which we bought from Peter Ross of Crystal Engineering in Cornwall, UK, back in 1993. We cycled nearly 1,000 miles in 1993 from the north of Scotland to the southwest tip of England. That's called John O'Groats to Land's End, which in the cycling world is known as end-to-end. And they did this to raise money for charity. Subsequently, just for the fun of it, we took the trike over to Ireland, Holland, and Belgium. Now, the trike has been in retirement for a number of years now, but we are in the process of getting it restored and back to running order. So that's great. Really appreciate that, Pauline, sending that to us. It's a great looking side-by-side sociable trike. We saw Nina's sociable that she had, which I think was a quad, but those are really interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, Peter Ross was the gentleman who started that trike business and ended up selling it to Chris and Neil, who turned it into ice trikes, if I'm not mistaken, there in Cornwall. So thanks again for sending that in, guys. If you have pictures of your accomplishments or events you want to share, you can please send those to us at laidbackbikereport@gmail.com, and we will highlight those on a future segment of viewer submissions. So thanks. All right, what's coming up next? We are going back to our monthly schedule. Give the guys a break here for a while. December 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have David Aschenbrenner with his story of the lost recumbent. You can follow this story. It's kind of been going on. You've seen it on Bent Rider. David has been posting there a little bit on Facebook as well. He created a folding trike way back in the early 1980s. Talk about pioneering. And it became famous enough to land on the pages of Popular Science magazine. There was an article written on that. And there's a whole story about how that trike ended up getting lost and then reclaimed. And he is working on it and has a version that works right now. So we're going to take a real close look at all of that on December 6th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the Laidback Bike Report coming up next there. So how can you support us at the Laidback Bike Report? If you like what we do here with Nina today and what's coming up and what we've done in the past, please like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go ahead and click that little eye, if you would. Head to our website and find out more about the Laidback Bike Report. And please become a Patreon patron. These guys right here did, and they support us for various amounts on a monthly basis. And you can do so for as little as $1 a month. So we'd appreciate that. And if not, just keep on watching. We love all our viewers, no matter the level of support. So, all right, guys, let's bring everybody back up on stage. Good. Nina's still with us. We got a few more there. There we go, guys. That I thought was a wonderful, fun show, and I appreciate all the help. Larry and Trey especially, thank you for making it go so nice and smoothly and listening to Nina's directions. When you don't rebel, I think it goes a lot better. And so appreciate that. Larry and Hansa and Doug, thank you guys so much for your contributions today as well. So, folks, that's going to bring us right to the end here. I appreciate everything that the panel has done, and I wanted to thank you most of all for watching every month. So, until our next webcast, from all of us here at the Laidback Bike Report, so long, bent riders.